A pause menu. How do we make it work? How do we get to this point where we can bring up a pause menu, freeze the whole game, and move on from there? That's what we're going to go over. Just to show, we are just in play mode. We press escape. There's the pause menu. We can resume, we can restart. Obviously, when we hit escape in Unity, it also removes our cursor from the window. So it looks like it's a bit wonky, but actually it does work. We can restart from checkpoint. We can quit to main menu. It all works. And that's everything from the pause menu. Really handy when you are trying to check your entire game and flip between scenes, or just pause where it is and test out other functionality. Very, very handy. So, how do we build one? Well, let's see how this one's built. It uses three main components. We have our pause manager. So you can see on this pause manager, there is our pause menu button. So this is the binding where we have set up an input reference. So input system, this is using Unity's new input system. It's really good. If you're using get key, I would highly recommend to move away from it. You can see pause menu. We have bound escape for our player mapping, for our pause action, as well as start on our gamepad. So we do have controller support, and that is why I recommend it. You'll have full controller support and mouse and keyboard out of the box. So we've got that. We've got play binding for opening up the pause menu. We've got the actual reference to a pause menu. I'll show you how this works in a moment. Here's the pause menu. It is disabled, and that's an important thing, is that we always have it disabled. And when we want to show it, we'll show it. In fact, there's other UI going on, and I'll show you how we actually handle that too. We have Kafka. This is our message bus that we use, just hand-built. Very simple. I'll show you a quick rundown on it if you're interested. Otherwise, feel free to just use Unity events. That totally works, or actions. That is fine for what we're about to do. So the pause menu, quick highlight as to what it is and how it's made. So the pause menu, we have just an empty object. So it is already part of the canvas. We've got a root UI canvas that just deals with everything matching the height, or rather the width of our screen, so it scales, and all our UI sits within it. We just enable and disable the UI components as we need it. In this case, the pause menu. We then have a panel that is holding it all, rather all the buttons. So we said, okay, here's the panel, and here are all the buttons within them. You can configure the buttons however you like. They all have a text. We always use Text Mesh Pro for everything. Don't use the text UI. It is very deprecated. Use this one. Don't use legacy text. Don't use text. You'll eventually realize why, but that's not what this video is about. So this is our pause menu, nice and simple. We're just going to make it disabled again. And let's quickly just go over what it is. We've got some references to some buttons, the resume, checkpoint, and quit button. Resume, checkpoint, quit. We've got a whole bunch of input actions that we want to enable and disable. Now, I'll show you a better way of handling this. We kind of got to this point where it works, and we're not going to refactor. We're not really gaining anything from it. It just works. Hashtag Todd Howard. Then we can disable objects. This is where certain things, if you want to enable your pause menu and you want other objects to enable or disable, you can use this pattern. So you can just have a entire list of game objects that you want disabled and enabled. In this case, crosshairs and inputs. I'll show you really quick what I mean. We have a crosshair and this helper UI that pops up at the very start. You can sort of see all this and the crosshair. So I'm just going to open up the menu and you can see it hits all these and makes them disappear. That's essentially what that is doing. So let's dive in and see what we have. Whoop, that one. Spoilers. Pause Manager. So, Pause Manager. What does the Pause Manager do? This is what I had shown right at the beginning. Pause Manager, Kafka, Pause Menu. So, Pause Manager, we have a reference to our escape button, essentially, because we're on mouse and keyboard. We're just going to do some standard administrative binding. So we can listen the toggle pause action to the escape button being pressed. When it is pressed, we just flip the menu on or off. Nice and simple. On start, we're going to subscribe, and on disable, we're going to unsubscribe to our message bus. So this is where I said that you can just use Unity actions or Unity events or actions. You can do that instead. You can subscribe and unsubscribe. We just have a very simple message bus that I'll show you at the very end of this video. Actually, the important part is pause and unpause. So these are called whenever we get a pause game or an unpause game, respectively, for the that is published on our Kafka bus. So let's jump into the main menu and actually see where all the magic happens. So our pause menu UI, if we quickly just go back to Unity and have a look, pause menu UI is attached to our pause UI. It is currently disabled, so this is in the disabled state. All right. So since it's in the disabled state, let's start from the very top. We just get some references to the buttons that we need to use. We have a list of actions that we want to disable and a list of actions that we want to enable. Now, specifically, these are input system actions. This is everything that you have created using the new input system. You can drag and drop them straight into this as individual actions. A better way is to just use mappings or use a separate object to handle this, but we're already here. We have the objects that we want to disable, and we have a cache reference to what their previous state was. So if they were enabled, they would return back enabled. If they were disabled, we will return them to disabled. In that case, not do anything with them. So when we press our button, it will toggle the pause menu game object active. So now that it is active, we hit the on enable. On enable is going to publish a pause game event, and that will hit the pause manager because it is listening for a pause game event, and it will set up the time scale. Now, you're probably wondering, why do we want to set up the time scale? Why are we going back and forward? The idea is that the pause menu, it is only dealing with the UI and anything that needs to be done to have the UI appear as we want it to be. If we use the time scale within here, it is already doing too much. It is not the responsibility of the UI to determine the game time state. That would be the pause manager, because it is dealing with pausing the game. What's important here is that when you pause the game, it may not mean you want to open the UI. Whereas when you open the UI, you want to stop the time scale. That's why these are separated. Because what you can do is, by having the pause manager deal with timescale, say if you wanted a stop time camera event within your game, like you wanted things to freeze so that you can move your camera around, you can do that because you've got your timescale here and you don't require the UI to be fishing for that logic. So this is, think of this right now as just simply dealing with timescale for the purpose of this. In the pause manager, you could also add more things here if when you paused, you want other things to happen, and that is why it is important to keep them separated. Now, importantly, if it's pause menu UI related, you keep it in the pause menu UI. All right, next, we're going to then record original object states. So we're going to cache all these objects. Let's just go to the cache object states. What does it actually do? We just iterate all the objects and we gather their state. We're going to get whether they are active or not, and we're just going to store that so that we can return them back to that state when we're done in the menu. So we're going to cache that. We are then going to take all the input system actions that we have assigned. Just show you here all the input system actions. So all this stuff that we have assigned, because I've determined that in order to, when we pause, we don't want the player to be able to attack and crouch and jump and move, all of that. They must not have that functionality. We just want to give them UI functionality with their buttons and their keyboard and their mouse and the gamepad. We don't want them to be shooting while they're navigating the UI by clicking. That would be unintended. So we're saying disable all this, enable all this. Whoops. So that's essentially what we're doing. We're saying everything that needs to be disabled, disable it. Everything that needs to be enabled, enable it. Then we're just going to make sure that the cursor is visible. Because we're using a first-person shooter, we turn the cursor off so you don't see the cursor in your crosshair. In this case, since we're in the UI now, we want to turn it back on. Ideally, we would check whether we're using a gamepad or not and then turn it on there. But you know what? Baby steps. Next, we just have our listeners for our different buttons. So we've bound those. And all we do is have the button logic. Button logic is very simple. I'm not going to go over this. It is simply whatever you want each button to do. I have another video, I think the previous one to this, that kind of talks a little bit about it. More around the transitioning scenes, but also dabbles into some of the buttons. And yeah, when we are done and then we hit resume game, in this case you can see on resume, we're just going to disable the object. And disabling the object means that the on disable will trigger. So on disable will unpause, which means the timescale will return back to 1. So back to normal time. We're then going to swap all our inputs. So all the UI inputs are going to be disabled and all the player inputs are going to be enabled. We're going to restore all the disabled objects back to their original state. And for our purposes, we are disabling the cursor. So we've returned back to normal and everything is pretty much done. The part that I haven't really talked about is the disabled objects. The disabled objects, where is it? Cache objects and restore object state. We are just iterating through them and returning back to the original state. The reason being is that when we paused, we wanted all the UI to disappear, as I've probably mentioned earlier. So that's how that works. Now, I did mention that there is a better way of, instead of this being sort of hand jammed in here, every single UI element. I mean, if you have every level, you'll have to have a pause menu. You have to assign it every single in every single level. There is a more elegant way to do it, and that is through an input map manager. So you kind of just give it inputs. You can either deal with the input map by generating the C# class. So this has got a little generate C# class, and then you can use this as a reference. For this purposes, I've not gone that route because I think the way we handled the mapping was unintentionally in the wrong direction. And so we've just decided, okay, let's just use the player inputs and the UI inputs and the Tetramino inputs in this case. So all we've done is we've bound to our Kafka events. Yes, there are some duplicates because where you pause the game doesn't mean that you want to go into menu mode. They're not exclusive to each other. However, we do want the same functionality. So just so that some things are handled better. What we're doing is simply setting the inputs appropriately, that same set action state. I took it across, and we are just setting up the inputs to whether they're false or true. And that is every single one of these mappings. So if we were to pause the game, we would go into menu mode. Menu mode would set it up as we want. When we unpause, we go into play mode. So this is how you would do it with an input map manager instead of the other way that we've done. And we've sort of gone with an enabled and disabled list. Kind of, it's a bit ambiguous. Yeah, so lastly, I wanted to show Kafka. Kafka, this is the message bus that we've been using. You can sort of just have a look at it. I could have sort of just stop here, but it does exactly what it needs to do. It holds a bunch of strings and objects in a dictionary, or rather strings and actions that take in an object in a dictionary, and it lets people subscribe and unsubscribe, as well as publish events. Yeah, this is just our own very simple system that we use instead. So hopefully that has given you an overview as to how we handle pausing and unpausing. Note that these managers, let me just show you one more time. The pause manager, it's just a monitor behavior. The pause menu is also monitor behavior, and Kafka is also a monitor behavior. It is not they aren't singletons. Oh, sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong. Kafka is a singleton. The rest are not. So you have to place them within the scene. They don't carry across. Yeah, that is how you pause and unpause. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this content, check out the other ones. If they interest you, feel free to like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll try to post more often. And if you have anything that you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments. Cheers.